I never thought I'd be in a situation like this. My name's Jake, and I've been with my wife Emily for about 5 years now. We got married right after she finished college, and we were pretty happy. At least I thought we were. She was the kind of girl who seemed perfect at first. Smart, funny, always knew how to make me laugh. We were planning our future, talking about a family, a house, all that good stuff. But somewhere along the line, things started to feel off. It was subtle at first. Small things, really. She'd be late at work sometimes, excuse herself with vague reasons. Late meetings, she'd say, or I just need to finish this project. I took her word for it. She's a busy woman, I figured. But then I noticed she was hiding her phone more often, keeping it close when she thought I wasn't looking. She'd be quick to dismiss any suspicions I had, throwing attitude when I asked questions. "You're spying on me," she snapped once. "Get a life." But I shrugged it off because I didn't have any concrete proof. That was until a couple of weeks ago, when I started poking around a bit more. I wanted to understand if something was really going on, and that's when I found the emails. I didn't even mean to, it was an accident, really. I was trying to open her email for some reason, probably to check if she'd left her account logged in on her laptop, and I saw the subject line, "Meeting at the Hilton, 8 p.m." I thought it was for a work thing, but then I saw the date. It was last Saturday night. I opened the email and my stomach sank. There were hotel reservation receipts attached, with her name and her boss's name, Mark. I knew Mark. He's a decent-looking guy, tall, confident, everything I'm not. I'd never thought Emily would cheat on me, especially not with someone like him. I looked closer and I saw the dates, times, the room service charges. They'd been sneaking off for hours, apparently having sex. That much was obvious. My stomach twisted. I couldn't believe it. All this time she'd been lying. I felt numb at first, just staring at the screen. I kept thinking, how long has she been doing this? During my pregnancy? Because it hit me then. She'd been doing this while I was home, worried about her and the baby. I felt sick. It was like my world was crashing down piece by piece. How could she hide this? How could she lie so easily? I kept going over every sign, every missed call, every late night she'd lied about. It all added up. The woman I thought I knew was a complete stranger now. I remember sitting there, staring at the screen, feeling like I was in some kind of nightmare I couldn't wake up from. My mind was racing, trying to process how Emily could do this to me, to us, right under my nose. I had been so blind, so trusting. We'd been through so much, her pregnancy, my job stress, planning a future. And all the while she'd been sneaking around with her boss, Mark. I couldn't get over the betrayal. It was like a punch in the gut every time I thought about it. I knew I had to confront her. I couldn't just pretend I didn't know. I needed answers, but I also knew it wasn't going to be easy. When I finally decided to confront her, I waited until she got home from work. I was furious, but I kept my voice calm, trying to hold back the rage bubbling inside me. She walked in, looked at me with those fake innocent eyes, and I just snapped. I threw the emails on the table and said, "What the hell is this, Emily? Tell me what I'm looking at." She looked at the receipts, her face slowly turning red. "It's nothing," she spat out, her voice shaky. "Just some work dinner, that's all. You're overreacting." She tried to brush it off like I was crazy, but I wasn't buying it. I pressed her, "Really? Hotel receipts, late nights, secret meetings with Mark. How long has this been going on?" Her eyes flickered and she said, "I don't owe you any explanations. It's just sex, Jake. It doesn't mean anything. I was stressed and he's just comforting me, that's all." I could feel my blood boiling. How could she be so cold, so dismissive? I told her, "You were pregnant, Emily. You were supposed to be building a life with me. Instead, you're out screwing your boss, lying to my face. How could you?" She shrugged, her bitchy attitude coming back. "I don't owe you my reasons. You want to be a jealous little bitch about it. Fine, but I'm not going to sit here and justify myself for having a life outside of you." That comment cut deep. After that, I was a mess. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. I never thought I'd see her as this manipulative, selfish person. The woman I married, the woman I loved, she was gone. That night I stayed up, staring at the ceiling, trying to understand how I got here. How I let myself believe that marriage was supposed to be forever. I was angry, yes, but underneath it all, I was just heartbroken. I realized I had been so blind, so naive, and now I was stuck trying to figure out what the hell comes next. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and I kept replaying everything she said and did during our fight. Her words echoed in my head, "It's just sex. He's just comforting me," like that somehow made it okay. Like cheating on your husband during pregnancy, no less. Was just some minor mistake. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I didn't see the truth behind her lies. She had always been bitchy, yes, but I never thought it extended to something so cruel. I decided I needed to act, not just confront her, but really put an end to this. I needed to understand how deep this thing ran, if there was more than just Mark. So I started digging. I checked her phone, her email, even her social media, anything I could get my hands on. Turns out I wasn't the only one she was lying to. She had a pattern: secret texts, late-night calls, photos of her and Mark together, all hidden. The worst part, they'd been doing this during my entire pregnancy. I felt like I'd been punched again. All those nights I thought she was just exhausted, tired from work or pregnancy, she was out fucking her boss. One night I found a series of messages, flirty, suggestive, clearly more than just professional. She had called him baby, sweetheart, and told him she couldn't wait to see him again. I didn't even know what to feel anymore: anger, betrayal, sadness. I realized then that I couldn't just let this slide. I had to do something, anything. I wasn't going to be the fool who got played while she was out screwing around, so I started planning. I didn't want to blow everything up right away, not without having a clear plan. I wanted to make her see that I knew that I wasn't going to be made a fool of anymore. I thought about confronting her again, but I knew that would just turn into a screaming match. Instead, I decided to gather proof, more receipts, more messages, and then hit her where it hurts. I had to make her realize that I wasn't just some pushover anymore. I was done being the guy who got played. I'd be the one to decide what happens next. I was tired of her lying, her bitchy attitude, her manipulations. She thought she could get away with it, but I was done being a pawn in her messed up game. I spent the next couple of days collecting everything I could find: screenshots of the messages, more hotel receipts, emails, even some photos she sent Mark when she thought I wasn't looking. I knew I had enough to make her admit the truth, but I also wanted her to feel the full weight of what she'd done. I wasn't just after a confrontation anymore. I wanted to make her regret it, to see that she couldn't lie her way out of this one. Finally, I decided I'd had enough. I told her I needed to talk, and I brought her into the living room, laid everything out on the table. The receipts, the messages, everything. Her face turned pale and she started to deny everything, but I cut her off. I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "You've been sleeping with Mark, haven't you, during my pregnancy while I was trusting you?" Her smirk turned into a defensive glare. She started lying right away. "You're overreacting," she snapped. "It's not what you think. It was just sex, Jake, just sex. It didn't mean anything." I could see through her bullshit. I told her, "Don't lie to me. I've got proof. All I want is honesty now. How long has this been going on? How many nights did you spend with him, hiding it from me?" She looked desperate, furious even, but that bitchy attitude she always had was still there, trying to dismiss her actions. "It's none of your damn business," she shot back. "You're just jealous or whatever. I don't owe you explanations." At that point, I felt my rage boiling over. I was furious, angry at her, disgusted with her, heartbroken beyond words. I never thought I'd be sitting here, trying to piece together how my wife had betrayed me during the most vulnerable time of my life. I told her I was done, done pretending everything was okay, done with the lies and the cheating. She kept insisting she was entitled to her secret life, that I was just too controlling, that she'd be better off without me. The thing that stuck with me most was her attitude, so dismissive, so bitchy, like I was just some inconvenience she had to put up with. She kept arguing, throwing blame back on me, saying I never paid enough attention, that I was too focused on work, that I wasn't enough for her. Honestly, at that point, I was numb. I just wanted it all to be over. I realized I had to decide whether I could forgive her or if I needed to cut her out of my life completely. But even as I thought about ending things, part of me wondered if I'd ever really get over this. After that night, everything changed. I couldn't look at her the same way. The trust we once had was shattered beyond repair. I stayed up all night, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what to do next. My emotions were all over the place: anger, sadness, betrayal. I didn't know whether to pack my bags and leave or try to fix this mess. But deep down, I knew she didn't deserve another chance, not after what I saw, what I learned. The next morning, I sat her down again. I told her I made my decision. I couldn't stay with someone who had lied to me during my pregnancy, who had cheated on me with her boss, who didn't even bother to hide it anymore. I told her I was done. She tried to argue, to beg, even to cry, but at that point I was numb. I realized I was better off alone than with someone so selfish and manipulative. I told her I wanted a separation, that I needed space to think and heal. I didn't want her in my life anymore, not as my wife, not as the mother of my child. She threw a fit, calling me an asshole, saying I was overreacting, that she loved me, that she'd change. But I knew she wouldn't. I'd seen her true colors, and I wasn't going to be fooled again. I packed up a bag, told her to leave, and that was that. I moved out for a few days just to get some distance, to breathe. I needed that time to reflect on what I'd been through, to process everything. During those days, I felt empty, like my heart had been ripped out. I kept thinking about the pregnancy, about the future we'd planned, done in by her selfishness. Still, I also realized something. I was better off without the lies, the betrayal, the constant games. I'd been a good husband, a good father-to-be, and I deserved someone who respected me, who valued honesty. I started to understand that sometimes love isn't enough. If someone is willing to cheat and lie during your most vulnerable moments, then it's not love, it's selfishness. And I wasn't going to let her destroy what little stability I had left. So I made my decision. I was going to divorce her. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I couldn't stay in that toxic, dishonest relationship. I had to protect myself and what was left of my dignity. I learned that trust, once broken, is incredibly hard to rebuild, and sometimes the only way forward is to walk away and start fresh. In the days that followed, I filed for divorce. It wasn't easy. There were nights when I questioned everything, whether I was doing the right thing, whether I'd regret it, whether I'd ever be able to trust anyone again. But deep down, I knew I couldn't keep pretending that everything was okay. The betrayal was too deep, and I didn't want my child to grow up in a home filled with lies and resentment. Being alone during my pregnancy was one of the hardest things I've ever experienced. Not just physically, but emotionally. I had to confront the fact that the woman I married, the woman I loved, had thrown away everything we built for a fleeting affair with Mark. I kept reminding myself that I deserved better, a partner who would be honest, supportive, and loyal. I realized that sometimes love isn't enough to make a relationship work, especially when one person is so committed to betraying the other. Over time, I started to rebuild myself. I focused on the future, on preparing for the arrival of my child. I learned to trust again, not in Emily, but in my own strength. I found solace in my family and friends, who supported me through the worst period of my life. I stopped blaming myself for her actions, because ultimately she was the one who chose to cheat and lie. I came to accept that sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is walk away and start over. Looking back, I've learned some hard truths. If someone can cheat during pregnancy, during one of the most vulnerable times of your life, they're not worth fighting for. You have to value yourself enough to walk away from betrayal, no matter how painful it is. Trust is fragile, and once broken, it's nearly impossible to repair. But you can rebuild your life stronger, wiser, and more cautious. I hope others in similar situations realize they're not alone and that they deserve honesty and respect. No one should stay in a relationship where they're constantly lied to, manipulated, or devalued. It's a hard lesson, but I've come out of it knowing I'm better off without someone who doesn't truly care. Life goes on, sometimes in ways we never expected, but in the end, you have to choose yourself over the false comfort of a broken relationship. That's what I did, and I have no regrets.